Hello again and welcome back to the channel. This is Michael from TOEFLresources.com. In today's video, another sample writing for an academic discussion question. In just a moment, I'm going to show you the question and you'll have 10 minutes to write your response. After that, I'll show you a couple sample responses that I've written and I'll talk about what I think makes them effective responses. After that, if you stick around to the end of the video, as usual, I'll explain how you can get some free feedback from me on your practice responses. All right, so get ready. Here's the question. Okay, so now you can see it on the screen. This is a question from a sociology class. In this video, I'm not going to read the question out myself because that's not how it works on the real test. I'll just let you pause the video and read it yourself. Remember, you've got 10 minutes to read everything and to write your response. There's one clock for the whole thing. It requires a bit of time management. Okay, so again, pause the video, give yourself 10 minutes to write a response, and then come back and I'll talk about my possible responses to this. All right, so here is one possible response to this question. If you want to see the response without any kind of highlights or comments from me, just pause the video, take a moment to read it. But if you want to hear my opinions, take a look at the screen now. There's a few features here that I think makes this an effective response to the question. First of all, I've begun with "in my opinion." Now, this isn't totally necessary, but I think beginning with some sort of transition like "in my opinion" or "I feel that" or "I believe" is a good way to signal to the reader that you're about to state your direct response to the question. That's what I did here. In my opinion, having a smartphone is advantageous in the modern world. What else have I done to make this an effective response? Well, I've used some conjunctions, both coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions like but, when, and so. The use of conjunctions kind of gives your grammar a bit more complexity or sophistication. I've been reading a lot of sample responses that people have posted in the comments of these videos lately, and often I see responses that have like perfect grammar that doesn't have any mistakes, but the grammar lacks like conjunctions, it lacks conditional sentences, it just lacks anything that kind of brings it to a more advanced level. Therefore, when I'm estimating the score, I can't give them a perfect score, even though their work is free of mistakes. So try to use some conjunctions in your work. And if you don't know what they are, well, that's beyond the scope of this video, so I think you should probably do some research into that. A few other things that I've done. Well, I've written about 120 words for this response. I think that's a good length. I think you can get a strong score with just like 120 or 130 words. Some people have talked about writing like 150, 160, 200, 250 words for this task. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can get a strong score with like 120 words only. Now, in terms of structure, well, as I said, I started my answer by directly stating my opinion, like my direct response to the question. In my opinion, having a smartphone is advantageous. After that, I elaborated on my opinion with some details. No specific examples of smartphones being used, but just more details that make it clear why I feel this way. And then at the end of the response, I gave a more specific, tangible example. And I used the transition "think about" to introduce that example. I think that's a fun transition to use. Now, this structure is not like mandatory. You can do it in a different way. You don't necessarily need a specific tangible example. But I think this is a good approach to the question that, might come in handy when you're writing your response. Let's take a look at another one. Again, if you want to see this without any of my notes or scribbles, just pause the video, read it on your own. But here's my here are my techniques. So how did I approach this answer? Well, this time I started with a fun transition. I said, While I can see where Lisa is coming from, I am convinced that smartphones have a really detrimental impact on modern life. So I used a fun sort of transition at the beginning. While I can see where so-and-so is coming from, and so-and-so is the person I disagree with. And that's a fun approach. You could probably use that in any response where you're disagreeing with one of the students. And then I used the signal, I am convinced that, just before stating my main opinion. Otherwise, I used a few more conjunctions, so and when. And then I used the transition in contrast to compare two things. And phrases like in contrast or in comparison, I think are always welcome in the TOEFL writing section. And you can see my word count here is just 111 words. And again, I think you could probably get a fairly decent score with just 111 words. I think that's probably okay. You don't have to write a ton. In terms of structure, it's basically the same. I started with a clear thesis statement where I directly responded to the question. And then in the middle part, I just gave more kind of supporting details. And then towards the end, I gave a more tangible and specific example about starting with what my parents did when they were young and what I did later on in my life. You can see I ended my response with an exclamation mark. I don't know, maybe that's kind of risky because it's not totally fine in academic writing, and I would never recommend it in the old independent writing task from the TOEFL. But I think it's probably okay in this task, just something to think about. Don't necessarily do it because I said so, but hey, I think it's fun. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's video. If you want to find out more about what I do, check out TOEFLresources.com. That has guides to every section of the test and many more sample questions for both the writing tasks and the speaking tasks and the reading and whatever. You can also contact me about getting lessons or evaluations of your work if you want more help. But if you do want some quick help and maybe a quick score estimate, as always, I invite you to leave your response to this question in the comments down below. When I have a moment, I will take a look at it. I'll make a few basic comments, I'll estimate the score, and hopefully that'll help you prepare for the TOEFL. These days, I'm trying to get to those within 24 to 48 hours. Meanwhile, if you do have any other questions about the TOEFL or about life, please leave them down below and I will respond to those as well. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that, but stay tuned. I should have more videos like this up in the next few days. Take care. I will talk to you later.